Hi Reddit, I'm Congressman Ron Paul and I'm here to answer a few questions. This comes from Kitanada. Dr. Paul, you have stated that you do not support net neutrality. Could you define net neutrality as you see it, then elaborate on what aspects of net neutrality you do not support and why? Well, first off, I don't claim to be an expert on this, and my definition might not be as clear-cut as somebody else's. But net neutrality means to me that the internet services will be the people who use the internet want equal access to the internet, and in order to achieve that, they want the federal government to come in and regulate it. And since I'm not a regulator, I'm not in support of that because it would be a solution come about by regulation. Even though some of these problems come up because of regulations, you should get rid of the bad regulations. But I want free access. I want the free market to handle it. I do not believe net neutrality is a totally free market answer to that problem. Okay, next question. This is from Fauster. This is a long question. Do you think that scientists are politically motivated with regard to issues of global warming and evolution? As a medical professional, you probably understand the value of deferring to specialists outside areas of your expertise. Nonetheless, you openly disagree with overwhelming scientific consensus in these two areas. While hardly anyone thinks Greenland will melt in 20 years, the overwhelming majority of scientists believe the effect of climate change will be lasting and severe in the next 50 to 100 years. With regards to evolution, almost all biologists, geologists, and physicists would say it's better characterized as a law than a theory. Do you think the Bible provides a superior account of the origins of life on Earth and thus claim a different source of expertise? Or rather, do you believe that scientific claims are grossly wrong, biased, or politically motivated? I would say this question is politically motivated. That's where the problem comes from, because I think there's good science on both sides of the argument. And I think for somebody to claim totally that all the science is on the side that we're in a disaster period of global warming, I think that's completely false. To totally ignore it would be completely false. For every scientist you come up with and say that you better worry yourself to death about global warming, others can find scientists that will refute that just as well. I mean, for instance, the last 10 years, the globe hasn't been warming. And the science is back and forth on this. I think we, quite frankly, spend way too much time on this issue, saying that if you don't support the thesis that we're in this period of global warming, somehow we don't care about environment. What we should care is about pollution, and that's one thing. And the whole problem is that pollution can be better taken care of under a private market system and private property, because nobody has a right to pollute their neighbor's property, their neighbor's air, or their neighbor's water. And if we had had strict adherence to this, we wouldn't have had so much pollution. In the Industrial Revolution, industries and cities and other government agencies have always been given license to pollute. And today, probably the biggest polluters are our government, our Pentagon, for instance, are great polluters. You ought to see what they're doing with these burn piles in Afghanistan, all the waste that they're burning, and all the petroleum products they burn, at the Pentagon. So there's a lot of concern for this, but it's not so clean cut as saying, well, you either agree or disagree with what's happening on global warming. And I think that that there's too much demagoguing on both sides of that issue. With regard to evolution, I mean, I just don't spend a whole lot of time on this, as if especially in politics. Do you believe in evolution or don't you believe in evolution? Yes or no? And then we'll decide whether or not you should be president or not. It is a theory. Nobody has concrete proof of any of this. But quite frankly, I think it's sort of irrelevant that because we don't know the exact details and we don't have, geologic and support for evolutionary forms, it is a theory, even though it's a pretty logical theory. But my concept of understanding of a creator is not related one bit to whether or not I or anybody has to believe in evolution or not believe in evolution. The idea that if you don't believe in evolution, you don't believe in a creator, that's total nonsense. So I think this once again is overly played, and we spend too much time on it. And besides, if you're in politics, it shouldn't be a bother. This is something maybe not dealing with science as much as with your own spiritual life and your own personal beliefs. The important thing is that you have a political system that you can debate this and make a decision, and government rules shouldn't be based on this. If you have governments basing their rules on this, then it becomes very important. But in a libertarian society, these beliefs aren't nearly as critical. When you have government schools, it becomes important. Are you fair in teaching that the earth could have been created by a creator, or it came out of a pop, out of nowhere? You know, in a personal world where you don't have government dictating and ruling all these things, it's not very important. So the problem is the environment, the political environment, that makes these issues so important in deciding what one believes in. Okay, the next question I have here is squirrel on fire. All right, this one says, Congressman Paul, the current health care legislation seems to be moving closer to the insurance industry's ideal. Minimal change plus mandatory insurance each day. What can be done to tip the balance of power in the Congress away from lobbyists and toward the voters? Thanks for agreeing to speak with us. You know, I think there's a very important point here about tipping this whole process away, not only from the insurance companies, but from the lobbyists, whether they're the drug companies or HMOs. And they're the ones who have been in charge, and that's part of this corporatism. And right now, I sense that corporatism is alive and well with the last administration, with this administration. So that is a big deal. Now, when it's said toward the voters, see, you could interpret that in different ways. The voters might vote for total freedom. The government get out of the way. You don't have a right to medical care. You have a right to take care of yourselves and work hard and keep all your earnings and just get out of the way. But somebody else might say, well, if you can get 51% of the voters to vote against the 49% of the voters and demand free medical care, you know, that's entirely different. So it isn't so much what the majority votes for, because the majority might vote to take away the rights of the minority. And that's really what's going on. This has nothing to do with insurance. The definition of insurance is completely messed up, because we're talking about social welfare programs, because insurance measures risk, and what we're talking about today in medicine doesn't measure risk at all. Everybody wants the first nickel paid for. There's no responsibility. The only thing left in insurance and medical care is if you have a medical savings account, that you get your tax money back for your medical savings account, and then you have a chance to buy a major medical policy to take care of major accidents and major illnesses. Now that would be real insurance. But I think the implication of this question is, are the insurance companies on the take here? Do they have a lot of influence? And I would say yes. That's part of the corporatism that is involved. It's been involved since government got involved wholesale, since the early 1970s. So part of my plan is to get rid of that whole system and allow the marketplace to work, and that is give everybody 100% tax credit on everything they spend on medical care, and make sure that everybody's treated equally, that you don't have a tax benefit if you belong to work for a large corporation, but you don't get the advantage if you're an individual or a small company. That's where the real mess has come from. And we need to force the insurance companies to be competitive, not to have monopolies, around, in certain states, but insurances should be sold across state lines. And if it's true insurance, the rates would come down. So there's a lot of other things I would suggest about medical care, but this question dealt with mainly the insurance.